Hello and welcome to Hopeful Conversations. I'm Vicky Montague, and today I'm joined by an amazingly inspirational lady called Angie Scott. Um, Now, Angie is somebody who a bit like most guests on my podcast, I guess, I only came across her, I guess, in the last year, maybe 18 months, and was sort of secretly stalking her like I do many of my guests. Um, Being aware of her presence in the world and just being interested by her. Um, and I'm not going to say too much because I really just want to crack on with the conversation, but she is someone who, it seems to me, didn't get the memo that most of us got about money being scary, about it being difficult to create, about you having to work hard for it. Well, that probably you maybe did get that memo because you work incredibly hard, but um, she has an ease around money that absolutely fascinates me. And one of the things I remember you saying, Angie, was if you lost all of your money, and we're talking a significant amount, which I'll ask Angie to talk about, but if she lost all of her money today, I remember her saying that it wouldn't matter because she'd make it back within 2 years. And there was something, I couldn't believe that when I heard that, Angie. It just blew me away. That knowing that you have that no matter what happens, you can create money. And so I want to open it up to you, really. I'd love to know, I'd love you to talk to us about where it all started, because I also remember you saying that you've never, as a child, you just had the sort of generating money thing. So I'd love you to kind of go back. I mean, I guess go back to when you were a kid and just talk through your experience with money.
I'd really like to just start by saying thank you for having me, and I love your energy, and just thank you so much for opening this space to have this conversation today. Massive appreciation for that. So thank you.
Yeah.
And yeah, when I was growing up, money it was scarce, but I was taught something very different around money than I would say my peers were taught, and I didn't realize this until much later. So one of the exercises we kind of do with the groups that I work with is what's our first memory about money? And mine is my dad giving me this big fat plastic orange pig and saying that he was going to start giving me pocket money. And straight away I was like, great, I can go and get some sweets. I can go and get what I want. And him saying to me, well, really think about what you're going to get the most out of with this money. It probably isn't going and spending it all straight away. And I had a bit of a think about it, and I come up with 3 or 4 things, and I decided I wanted this kind of monkey thing that were all the rage when it's like a fluffy bear thing that was all the rage when I was a kid, and we never had anything like that. I used to get a few bits on birthdays and Christmas, and I decided I wanted this monkey. So my dad sat down with me and he helped me work out how many weeks I would need to put my money away to get this monkey. And I remember each week I'd put my money in this pig and I'd tick off how close I was. And by the time I got this monkey and I'd saved up for it, it was the most important thing to me on the planet because I'd done it myself. And I believe, looking back, this was kind of the first intro into, we don't have to go and spend all our money. We can create something we want to create instead by having a focus and keeping the focus on what that is. So I'd say that was my first real lesson. And, I kind of got into this habit of working out where I could generate the most money, because I remember a lot of my friends had paper rounds when I was 14 or so. And I asked the newsagents if I could collect the money from the customers instead of doing the paper round, because I realized the wage was higher. So I'd go out, instead of getting up in the morning and going out and delivering newspapers, I was going out on Friday evening and I was collecting payments door to door. And this meant I was generating 3 to 4 times more than my friends who were on paper rounds, and they were going out every morning in the cold.
I love it.
And Christmas, we got massive tips. We'd get £5 and off. We had over 100 customers that we'd go out to and getting £5 sometimes off people for collecting the money, because we were the faces they would see. They wouldn't see the kids in the morning that went on their bikes and delivered the papers. They'd see us, and we'd have these conversations every week. So yeah, taking £200 or so, and I'm going back to kind of the late 80s, 87, 88. That was a lot of money back then. And just this memory of being the kid that always had the money and would be able to go and buy my friends sweets, and it just wasn't ever a struggle. So I think I've really learned that there's always a way for it to kind of come in. And I've had a few kind of times in my life where, as you say, I could make the money back. I've had a few times where I have walked away and I have burnt everything down, things going on in my life, and I've just kind of started again. So I know from real experience that, you know, we can all start from where we are. There is no kind of culture of we've got to have set variables in our life. We've got to have this job. We've got to have this level of luck. We can start where we are and just build from where we are. And I love showing other people that they can do that too. That's kind of become my real passion.
And you're a master at it. I'm on one of your courses, so we'll obviously put details of how people can kind of connect to you in the show notes and at the end of the call. But yeah, that I love that story of what your dad did for you. I mean, that's such a beautiful idea, and so yeah, it kind of set you up, I guess, into that, looking at how you can spend money more effectively for something that you actually want, rather than on a pile of stuff that gives you immediate gratification, like sweets or whatever. That's I love that story. It's amazing. And you said, which is something that I think is really appealing, that people can start where they are. Can you just talk a little bit about that? Because I guess at the moment there's lots of people who are financially struggling. So we hear from, you know, all the news. And so they might be listening and be thinking, well, that's all very well, but I don't have, how am I supposed to start with this? Because I don't have anything, or I don't have enough to feed my family. Or so what does that mean? What does that look like practically, I guess?
What's coming up for me is probably the best way to answer that is to tell you a story about an incredible lady that I've worked with over the last 2 years, because she illustrates this really, really well. And this was a lady, incredible drive, but she was, should we say, a little bit stuck with just the what to do. And she's gone in really rapidly from being that mum that was trying to give the kids everything that she could give them, to someone who's now running 3 businesses with her and a partner. And they just did this as a gradual process of structure that we use within the group that you've been doing with me, where we create our investment pot, and we pay ourselves first. And this is kind of old, very, very old wisdom that a lot of us have lost. We get our pay packet at the end of the week, and it's all gone before we even get it a lot of the time. We've got bills to pay, we've got kids to feed, we've got school uniform to buy. And before we've even finished Friday, your money's all gone.
Mm.
When we get into a real habit of pulling some of that out first, so it may be that we don't go out on Friday night and buy fish and chips as a treat for the family because it's Friday and we've got the money, and we won't have it for the rest of the week, that we put it somewhere else instead.
Mm.
And we really grow that pot. And what I love it when people see is that any one of us knows how to take £5 and turn it into £10. Whether that's we go out to a car boot sale and we see something that we know is worth more than it's marked up for, or whether we go and buy a bulk packet of something, anything, and we break that packet down and we sell it individually. It's really easy to double your money. Really easy example is within the hospitality where I work at the moment, we can buy a packet of ice creams from Booker's for £6, and there's 12 in there. We can sell them for £1 each. Eat very, very easily on a warm day, and we've doubled our money. Everybody knows how to do that, and that's the principle that gets us out of that living hand to mouth, is setting that money aside and learning how to create money from the money. It becomes our employee rather than something we're kind of really burdened and tied into fighting to get. And that is the main philosophy, and anyone can do that. It's about entering into that mindset of money's our employee rather than we're not a slave to it.
Oh, I love that. I love that idea. And this is what I find so inspiring about you, and why I wanted to bring you on this podcast, because most people don't think like that. Like, until I heard you talk about it, I hadn't really ever thought about the fact that actually turning £5 into £10 is probably doable. And, as you point out, doubling your money. And I know you've spoken on our calls, on our course, about that being as simple as that, whether it's £5, £500, £5,000. And there's something really hopeful and fun in that. Takes out the kind of fear, I guess. For me, it brought in a whole level of playfulness. Right. Oh, I wonder how could I turn £1 into £2? Just sitting with that. And, I would encourage anyone who's listening to this to just, like, when you're out for a walk, just ponder that question. Like, how would I turn £1 into £2? Or how would I turn £5 into 10? And see how many ideas come up. And I guess one of the things you said was learning how to create money from money. And I wonder if you've got any pointers on that. Like, how does one learn that? Are there, like, how do you learn that? If you've never considered that, you've never even thought that you can create money from money.
What comes up for me on that is two things. It's first, just creating that awareness that it's possible, and seeing for yourself that actually, that looks true.
Yeah.
And playing with that as a possibility. And I've done this in so many ways over the years. I remember buying kind of pallets of catalogue returns, which I don't know if you can still get now, but at that point you could just buy a pallet of returns. You didn't know what was on it, but we would split these pallets down and sell the stock on eBay, and we'd often get 3 to 4 times back what we put in, and we could just repeat this process. And this is something I used to do when the children were really small and I couldn't go out and work because I was at home with the children. And I would sit on eBay, we'd go have a walk to the post office, the children would help with the labeling. And that's one example. I remember in the day when Pokemon cards first come into the market, I'm going back to kind of 95, 96, we used to spend our investment money on buying bulk packs of Pokemon cards, and we would break them down and do car boot sales. We made a lot of money doing this, a really lot of money. There's always kind of opportunities. And it becomes, for me, like going to the gym and lifting a weight. When you first go into the gym, you don't know if you can lift that weight that's on the floor. And you'll have a go and you might be able to lift quite a light weight. You might drop it once or twice. Your technique might not be great, but the more times you lift that weight, the stronger you get and the better you get at lifting it successfully. Mm-hmm. And this is exactly the same. It might be that we start off small. It might be that we make mistakes, but the more we lean into it, it's like training a muscle. We start to see opportunity. We start to learn kind of when to get off the bus, as it were. Like with the Pokemon cards, we started to see other people kind of coming into it and doing the same thing. And the car boot sales and the fairs that we used to go to getting really flooded with people doing the same thing, and all of a sudden it wasn't so lucrative.
Yeah. And
we stayed in the game too long, and we actually lost a little bit of money towards the end, but it taught us a great lesson of when to get off the bus.
Yeah.
It's all about that play and bringing that element of play in, because when we really realize that money always comes, it's always there, it's always available, it's always abundant and out there, as long as we're willing to go and play and do, that we can just go and test.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that playing and doing thing. I'm kind of curious, I guess. I know a little bit about what you're playing and doing now, and you talked about, you know, sort of starting with pallets and selling them and the Pokemon cards, and I'm guessing that in each of those playgrounds, if you like, that investment pot was being filled. So you know, a certain amount of the money that you took went back into the pot, as it were. So you've got a bigger and bigger pot. Where did it go? I'd love to know more about where it then went and where you are now. I think it's just really helpful for me, and I'm sure my listeners would be fascinated to hear more about this idea of growing that pot and then using that to put into the next kind of thing, I guess. Is that something that you would be able to share?
Yeah, so it can be really good fun to have this pot in front of you and think, oh, what can I do? What are the ideas? And to get a pen and paper and write down 10, 20, 30 things I could possibly do with this money. But what I found is even more powerful, and that happens to everybody in every situation, is when you start to tune in, opportunities come up naturally within your environment. And when you're looking in that direction, you see them. So the big turning point with where I am now, and I had wiped the slate clean and I was starting again, was an opportunity with a property. It was a property that needed a lot of work doing to it. And myself and my late partner, Matt, we picked this property up really cheaply. And I was in a position at that point, because I was a carer for my youngest child, to put a little bit of time and effort into fixing up this property. And we created our first Airbnb. And through the time and effort that I put into fixing up this property, learning myself as well, often from YouTube videos and how to fix up this property. One example is I had a quote from a contractor to do a repair in a ceiling, and he quoted me £350. And I thought, well, I can have a go at this instead. And I actually fixed it off a YouTube video. It cost me £10.50.
Wow.
It's just kind of seeing those little opportunities to create and being willing to go and get it wrong. That's really important. You're willing to get it wrong, then eventually you're going to get something right. And I've got it wrong a lot more times than I've got it right. I think that's really important to say. We built this Airbnb and really pushing buttons as well, and putting yourself in your discomfort zone. If I set this day of this Airbnb and I put it out, and I was taking bookings and people were asking me for more photographs. I'd had one room done. I had several rooms in the house. They weren't even started. And I had this kind of deadline of July to get everything done. And I'm having to reshuffle things around the house to get these photographs and put building work behind me to get these pictures out looking like the house was finished. And we got to the day of the Airbnb being launched. It was the Friday schools broke up. It's about 5 years ago now. And I had someone coming in at 3 o'clock, 10 o'clock. The house was absolute chaos. There was boxes everywhere to open of new microwaves and clocks and toasters. The carpets were still going down. And we just absolutely just got in as many people in as we needed to and pushed it through. And by 3 o'clock, the house was perfect. And I find the things that come together the best is when we push the button anyway, we find a way, because we really come into the creative zone of getting that right. And then with the renovation on the house, it released £25,000 equity that we were then able to put into the next project. And that turned out to be the hotel was the second project. So it got us the buy-in on the hotel lease. And my partner, Matt, negotiated a deal with the hotel owners that we would run it for 5 years and then purchase. So the hotel then becomes ours at that point. So really kind of looking for opportunities, because the hotel being ours sets different kind of avenues and it gives us more freedom. And we then, as we began to make more money, purchased more serviced accommodations to build the property portfolio. And then we were having trouble finding people to clean them and turn them over. So the next thing we did was set up a business to do that. We set that up initially with just 2 people. And there was enough time for them to change ours and go and do other people's. So we started to take contracts on from other people in the area who are having the same problem. And as it stands today, that company employs 12 people. And we're looking to, by next season, go into further expansion on that. So it's about gradual steps and seeing opportunity as they arise rather than having a grand plan.
Yes.
It's about being willing to go in and push a button. One of my favorite quotes this year is from a young man called Eric Bisnow, which is, bite off more than you can chew, you can learn how to chew later. I've found that's been true for every single thing I've done.
Wow. That's amazing. And I know that the cleaning business is a bit of a special one. Can you tell us a bit about that? Because I know that there's you know, some people are listening might be thinking, oh, well, you know, she's all right, she's making all this money and blah blah blah. And I know that there's another side to that. There's a which I really have only in recent years kind of really seen, is that the more that we can create, the more that we can spend, the more that we can help, I guess, the more that we can put back. Can you tell us a little bit about the cleaning business and how that's set up?
Yeah, so one of my way showers is a gentleman some of you may have heard of called Steve Hardison. And something that Steve Hardison says is he could take all the money in the world, because then there'd be more money that he could help. Money that he could help, more people that he could help. The more money he has, the more people he can help. And I've always realized that opening the door on giving is really key to allow that flow through. So when we're holding on to what money we've got, we're creating a blockage of more coming to us. When we're willing to let it go, we have this beautiful scenario of it flowing through. And one of the things I love about our property maintenance business is I haven't had to take a wage off this. I run it for the community and for the people, and the people on the ground, they get that back. They get back business. They get, the more they put in, the more they get back out, and it becomes theirs. And this is something I'm really kind of growing into the community. We support 12 people through this business, and we support, all in all, we've got 25 staff now, and that's supporting around 18 to 19 families, and growing that bigger, being able to support more families in the community and give them opportunities they wouldn't normally have is really important to me. And we're in kind of an environment here in North Wales where there's some really rich business people through tourism, through Zip World, and so on. But a lot of the people here, they're still kind of they're in an area where they're really hard workers, you know, and they've really fought, some of them, to create that environment for their children, and they're beginning to see they can do this too. And that's what I love doing the most. Is I kind of had this story at one point that if people knew what I was doing and they knew what I was creating, you know, that I'm showing off, and that I'm being the, oh, look at me, look how great I am, and all of these things I'm doing, because it seemed like I was doing something that nobody else was doing. And then I realized that every single one of us can do this. The key is that we get up on the days we don't want to do it, and we do it anyway. And recognizing that one of the key factors is we haven't got to feel like we're ready to do it. We just need to do it. Haven't got to feel like we're in this kind of emotional state of readiness and confidence. We can do it anyway. And that those feelings of, you know, I've got this, and trust in myself, they're a result of doing it anyway, even when they're not there. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, the thing that I found that we can often miss, is we can act even when our head's telling us we can't. We can still do it.
I love that. Such an important message, because most of us don't do that. Most of us follow the, oh, I don't know how, or I wouldn't be able to do that, or, you know, we follow that kind of narrative, and therefore there's no action that happens. So I love what you're saying, and I know that, I think it's Steve Chandler who says that about motivation. Like, motivation, we think that we have to be motivated before we can act, but actually the act of acting, the act of taking the step, creates the motivation. And it's that whole thing of turning around what we've all been taught, I guess. Don't wait, just do. Like, follow that inspiration. And, you know, when you were talking about the Airbnb property, I was sitting here like, oh my gosh, that sounds like absolute torture, my idea of hell. Like, I hate property maintenance, I hate DIY. You know, I was just kind of like, oh, I could hear my mind whirring at the thought of having to do that kind of stuff. But it's not that, is it? It's like, what is it that you're passionate about? Your passion is clearly that. Like, your passion was to buy a property that needed doing up, and to do it up and create something from that. And people listening might think, well, yeah, that's all very well. Like, I see that, and I could do that, but I don't want to do that. And I guess there's an element of, what is it that your talents are? What is it that because you're that's clearly a passion for you, and an area that you're interested in. And I think for people listening, it's about finding what that is for them, isn't it?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And one thing that I've realized is a very human condition is us defaulting to thinking because it's easy for us, it's easy for everybody.
Yeah.
And we miss the gold within ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Is every single one of us is walking around with knowledge that somebody else is missing and would love to know, or a talent and ability that they don't have. And that's just the beauty of the humanness, is we all have that thing to give.
Yeah.
And we're able to find that gold within us and give that out to the world in a way that gives other people permission to be themselves as well. You know, I think most of us feel like we're doing what we're meant to be doing when we hit that point.
That's a really great point. And I think, and obviously it's something that you're drawing out of us on the course. And it's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because we mostly miss it, like you say, because we've all got things that are really obvious to us and easy. And I think it's the easy thing. We there's things that all of us do that we find easy. And because we find them easy, we think that that's how everybody finds it. And that's what you're pointing to, isn't it? It's like, what is it that you find easy? Have a look and see whether other people find that easy. Is it something that everyone finds easy? Talk to people and find out. And you'll likely discover that actually it's not something that everybody finds easy, and therefore it's kind of your thing, it's your skill, it's your talent that you can share, that's unique.
Yeah, we can become real victims thinking, well, yeah, everybody else might have, but I don't.
Yes.
A really easy example right now would be the podcast that you're putting out. You've got listeners that would be sitting there thinking, I'd love to know how to do that. They wouldn't have a clue how to start a podcast. And that's the kind of the really simple gold that's under our nose that we miss the whole time often. It's something that's always right in front of us.
Yeah, and that's there's so much hope in that, because we don't have to go anywhere. We don't have to go and sort of retrain or find the thing, or because it's already here. If I guess it's the slowing down enough to kind of discover what that is. And so many of us are just so busy that we don't allow that time and space to find that, I guess. I don't know. What would you say to people about that? Discovering it. How did you discover your your first talent for taking apart pallets of clothing? I mean, where did that kind of come from?
It's curiosity and playfulness, and it's often just entering into that conversation. So I find I'm really energized when I'm around other people who are on a similar journey. So to find a group of people that want something similar, our group, as you've mentioned a couple of times, we've got some incredible people in that group right now. And any one of those people on that program can be speaking, and what they're saying is absolute gold. It doesn't need to be me that's speaking. It doesn't need to be you that's speaking. It can be anybody. And we've got some real gold. And when we're listening to people speaking about what they're creating, it triggers something within ourselves. It's almost like these fireworks going off of, oh, wow, I could do that. Oh, I could do that. I can see where I could put something like that together. It's more for me. And actually just immersing yourself in that conversation of possibility creates those sparks between us, because we are all connected and we do all kind of bounce and trigger off each other in such a huge way. And if we're in an environment of people who are struggling, and we begin to believe that about ourselves as well, that also becomes true.
Yeah, I was going to say that that's such a key thing, isn't it? Like who are you spending time with, and what's the kind of what's the focus of discussion almost. And it's so true, isn't it, that when we're spending all our time in an environment of hopelessness, of not seeing any possibility, that is what we experience. And to come out of that is to seek out people who are the opposite, I guess, who, like you, for me, I really saw the possibility that you share of creating money with ease. And that had me curious. Like, I was wanting to know more. And like you say, that stepping into that creates the kind of environment, the sparks for new ideas, to see new things.
Yeah, absolutely. And that every single one of us is walking around with that pot of gold and that personal asset that is just more valuable than anything we can imagine.
So on that seems like a great place to sort of draw this to a close, and for you to share how people can join you, how people can learn from you. Yeah, can you tell people about the next program that you're running that I'm going to be on in January for a start?
Yeah, I'd love to. So we're running the program again in January. We have a really, really low ticket price into the program, which is £100 for 12 weeks, which is ridiculous value, but it's set there intentionally for a reason to be that low, because I want a group of people that are passionate about what they want to create. And I find making it really accessible is the key to creating this.
Yeah.
They do fill up really, really quickly. Really, really quickly. I think there's going to be 20 places available for January. They're filling up incredibly fast. And if anybody wanted to kind of reach out and have a conversation about possibility, I'm always open to that. And I am Angie Scott on Facebook, ANGI and then SCOTT on Facebook, connected to Vicky, as I'm sure most of the people listening will be anyway. And Facebook is always the easiest way to contact me. Although I do have the websites and emails, I'm nowhere near as good at checking them as I am with Facebook. So yeah, if anyone's listening and is curious, then I'd love to have a chat and open possibility for you, because that's where my drive is to help everybody see that this is available to them too.
Yeah. And I can highly recommend the course because I'm currently doing it. I don't think we're quite halfway through, or maybe we're coming up to halfway through, but I've already tapped into something that wasn't there before. There's that playfulness, like I say, and that sort of spark of curiosity of what could happen, I guess. So that's amazing, given that I've been playing around with entrepreneurship for about 12 years, probably longer, I don't know. So yeah, that's the gift that you've given in that course is for sure incredibly valuable. So anyone that does want to join, I would urge to get on there quickly. But Angie, you also offer one-to-one coaching with people, don't you, as well as the group program? So if anyone was interested in actually talking to you privately on a one-to-one basis, you do offer that as well, don't you?
I do, yeah. So I work with clients on a one-to-one basis, either around wealth creation, or I'm also part of, if I'm allowed to mention it, the best coaching school in the UK, which is incredibly exclusive. And I also work with clients who want to know what we're doing with the coaching school, which is to really create kind of the very, very high end value within coaching and deliver impact that's incredibly powerful. So I work with clients around both of those things, and anybody asks me who I work with, my answer is really easy. I work with people that want to go and set the world on fire. So they're my kind of people. And yeah, have incredible fun with what we're doing.
Beautiful. Love that. I work with people who want to set the world on fire. Awesome. Well, I will put all your details below the video on YouTube and in the show notes for the podcast. So if anyone wants to connect with you, they can just click on those to take them straight to you. But I'm so grateful for your time today, and I'm sure all the listeners will be fascinated by what you've shared. So yeah, thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to seeing you very soon on our next installment of the course.
Thank you very much. I've had a great time talking to you this morning. So big appreciation for you for asking me to do this. So thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks, Angie. Bye.